they're doing a lot of work on the 880, and people are complaining like crazy because right now it's going right through the Fruitvale district, and there's all this mess, and it's like, you know, they're saving our lives, you know. So, you know, at least they paid attention anyway. That's all I have to say.
I'd like to respond to what you said about the people felt that the professional rescuers were responding too slowly. When there's an emergency, everyone that's trained in emergency at any level, hospital, fields, fire, at any level, that is a paramilitary kind of training. There are specific protocols, rules, and laws that you have to follow. And the quickest way to get fired out of your job as a firefighter is to go freelancing, is what it's called. And that means you break the rules and go ahead and do something like they do in the movies, but just because you want to or you want to be a hero. That's really, really disallowed, because if you kill yourself or hurt yourself, not only have you removed one rescuer, but you've added another victim. So that's not helpful to anybody at all. And there's a lot of movies and stuff, and just a ton of them on TV, about the firefighters walking into the fire with their coat open and their, you know, no face mask on or anything, and then they pick up the child and then they walk out like this. You don't do that. You crawl in on your hands and knees with all of your gear on, with a hose and somebody with you, always a partner. You don't go roaming around, walking around with your face up in the heat. Down below it's cooler. I think it's important because everybody says, well, it's just the movies, people know it's just the movies. I think it's important because there's a subliminal message that that's the way to do it, and that's really not the way to do it. And if people knew that, if they saw in movies and TV people getting down low where there's less smoke and less heat, they'd be more likely to do that rather than stand up and try to run out or run in, which is the worst thing you can do.
Setting a bad example.
So that's just, you know, a bone to pick up of my personal.
Well, and it wasn't so much. I mean, nobody's blaming nobody was concerned about the response by the individual responses. It was that just how long the deployment took, as far as the deployment was concerned, and they learned a lot from this earthquake, and, you know, with the fire there was a completely different response.
That's how we learned. We learned an awful lot from the Hills fire.
But I mean, we were shocked only in that you know, we just thought that you know, because we're an earthquake country, that there would be a better deployment system in place for these people, because, you know, the firemen were showing up, but it's like they couldn't even get up on the thing yet until they got the orders, and there were deployment problems because the ladder truck couldn't get there. They weren't communicating because communications were down at a lot of the firehouses and things like that. So, you know, that was the problem. I mean, not that these people weren't willing to help or they were lazy or anything. It's just that the system was.
It is amazing.
Think about it. That was just one incident of a small earthquake that was 60 miles away.
I know.
So the fire department, Oakland Fire Department, really took a whooping on that one, because they realized that they had brought almost all of their resources to that, and if anything happened anywhere else, they would not have any resources. So that made, you know, all fire
Page to the Oakland History Room.
And then
rethink all of their processes.
And then when the fire thing, where the hydrants hoses didn't hook up to there wasn't a universal connection, and the radios didn't communicate with each other, and you know, there were stories about 9/11 where the firefighters and the police had different radios in New York trying to figure out how to deal with that tragedy, and they couldn't talk to each other.
One of the problems is we don't have anything to learn from until something like this happens, because it's so unimaginable. We have all of our preparation and we think we're safe, and then something like that happens and we see the flaws.
Especially especially the cyberstructure, because I mean that, you know, obviously Caltrans isn't going to anticipate that their property is going to collapse like that, and so, you know, and the preparations for it obviously aren't going to, you know, it's going to be hard for them to develop some kind of preparation when it's not even considered something that's going to be on something that's not even on the wavelength, you know. So.
Well, the root cause of that was on I think, on the Educational Channel News, very briefly. I only saw it once and then they took it off. They never showed it again. And I think that's because there would be no real point in it, just people suing people over it. But the reason why that section collapsed and nothing else did was because that section, when they put it in, when they pour concrete, they make a box and they put, you've probably seen
Rebar.
when they're building stuff,
Yeah,
there's
right,
this
right,
rebar and there's vertical rebars, and then they take more rebar and wrap around it. That particular section, they did not wrap the rebar, and it's squashed down like the little child's lantern that you make out of paper. But there would have been really no point, nothing gained for anybody to try to sue anybody over that, because the damage was done.
And they hadn't built it up to specifications, and nobody had, until that happened, nobody knew that it hadn't been built to specifications.
Right, and there's no way we can predict exactly what's going to happen
Exactly.
in any kind of an earthquake like that.
Well, I'm glad you did this.
Thank you for coming.
Had a pleasure hearing both your advice and your experience. Oh, thank you.
I enjoyed that very much.
Thanks very much for coming.
Sure, my pleasure.
Thank you.
Bye-bye, Emily. Thank you.